I was going to make a short video about the election night, and then it turned into an election week, and then it turns out that even though Joe Biden has won, maybe he hasn't won at all, at least according to some people. So instead of this very short video about the US election, this is now going to be a long fucking video about the US election. In other words, fuck you, America. So us Norwegians, we're kind of obsessed with US politics because we live in a stable and functional democracy where nothing ever fucking happens. While in America, you have black guys burning down police stations, white guys with guns who want to shoot the black guys, and then policemen who believe that both of these groups are a threat. It's like rock, paper, scissors, except white man, black man, and blue man. And the left and right disagree on who beats who. Now, first off, I want to explain the Norwegian election system, because we don't have this first past the post system. Oh, Joe Biden got 49.5% of the votes in Georgia, while Donald Trump only got 49.3%. So of course every single college vote goes to Joe Biden. That's what the people wanted. Instead, we have the system where mandates are distributed based on the proportion of votes. So in my own county, for example, the Labour Party got 22.4% of the votes, the Conservatives got 28.8%, and the Progress Party got 19.7%. This meant that Labour got 4 mandates, Conservatives got 4 mandates, and the Progress Party got 3 mandates. Now, this kind of system allows Norway to have many small parties that get into power. So right now we have 9 parties in parliament compared to the United States 2 parties. And these parties are from the left to the right: Rødt, or Red, which is a communist party; Socialist Left, you can guess what their ideology is; the Labour Party, the Centre Party, the Greens, the Christian Democrats, the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the Progress Party furthest to the right. The left-wing parties in Norway are typically led by extremely handsome men that could instead have worked as supermodels, while the Christian Democrats are led by Knut Arild Hareide, who really looks like he went to Bible camp as a kid. Because there are so many parties competing for power in Norway, the parties sometimes form coalition governments. So for example, in 2005, Jens Stoltenberg, who was the leader of the Labour Party and who is now the General Secretary of NATO, he formed a coalition government with the Labour Party, the Socialist Left, and the Centre Party in order to be able to get a majority government. It was the first time the Socialist Left had ever gone into government, and it was also the first time that the Centre Party had gone into a left-wing government instead of a right-wing government. And in this way, it doesn't really matter which party is the biggest, it matters which constellation becomes the biggest. So if the Conservatives get less votes than Labour, they may decide to ally themselves with the Liberals in order to form a coalition government that together becomes bigger than Labour. But then in response, Labour may ally themselves with the Socialist Left and the Red and form an even bigger government. Voting in Norway becomes kind of like a game of chess. It's very strategic. Now, Norway has 2 blocks: the left-wing bloc, identified by the color red, and the right-wing bloc, identified by the color blue, which you know is how it always is, because everyone in the world knows that the color red is associated with socialism. So why would any country use these colors in any other way? It wouldn't make sense. So the red bloc is called socialistic or socialist-ish, and the blue bloc is called borgerlig or bourgeoisie, because we use Marxist terminology in determining our blocks. Yeah, it's fucking cool. Now, someone on the Norway subreddit, I don't mean this subreddit, I mean of course Norge, made a map of what Norway and the parliament might look like if we used the American first past the post system. So this is what the Norwegian parliament looks like today following the 2017 parliamentary election. And this is what it would have looked like if we used the first past the post system, where we see Labour absolutely dominates, the Conservatives have a minority in parliament, and the Centre Party gets just 4 seats, despite the big spread in ideology as you can see from the actual votes. Now somebody commented that if we had a first past the post system, the Norwegian population would adapt and votes to all the minor parties would disappear. Now somebody decided to make a map of what it would look like if the Norwegian population adapted. That is to say, everyone in the blue bloc votes for Conservative and everyone in the red bloc votes for Labour. Kinda like how both liberals and socialists in the United States have a tendency to vote for the Democrats. Now, with an independent center party, that would mean that the blues would really dominate the election. That is to say, the Conservatives. But if the center party joins the red bloc, then the Reds barely win over the blue. However, if the center party decides to join the blue bloc, then the socialist side is almost completely crushed. And it does make me wonder, if America did not have the first past the post system, would that mean that maybe Al Gore could have won in 2000, and this would cause a long chain of events that would lead to Bernie Sanders being president in 2020? I don't know. And I'm not gonna bother researching it, because I don't fucking care. My point here is that your democracy is kind of fucked. You have all these different people with different ideologies just voting for 2 parties. Now I'm not saying this because I want to be a chauvinist attacking the United States and United States politics. I'm saying this because no, actually I am a chauvinist. Now, so if I were to put these parties on a left-right scale relative to the United States parties, then the American Republican Party would obviously be here on the right, the American Democrat Party would be here on the left, and then we zoom out, and then we look at Rødt, the Communist Party, and they would be, of course, here, far to the left of the Democrats. Now let's look at Norway's most right-wing parliamentary party, the Progress Party. They are often accused of being Americanists who idolize America. The leader of the party is a big fan of Ayn Rand. She keeps this secret in Norway, but she talks about it with international media. Now FrP would of course be here, far to the left of the Democrat Party. Because you see, even though they admire America, they wouldn't do something ridiculous like get rid of free education and public health care. That would be crazy. That would create American conditions here in Norway.
Vil liberalistene at helsevesenet skal bli sånn som i USA, med spindyre behandlingspriser og helseforsikringer som mange ikke har råd til? Nei.
So there's this weird thing that happens when you compare politics across country lines, because FrP, the Progress Party, is the party in Norway where you're the most likely to find Trump supporters. And when I say most likely, I mean that there's an equal amount of Trump and Biden supporters in the Progress Party, as opposed to the other parties where Biden dominates. But in the parliament, FrP members overwhelmingly support Donald Trump. What's weird about that is that in praxis, FrP's politics are more similar to those of Bernie Sanders. Because even the Progress Party wouldn't dream of campaigning against public universal health care. Now ideally, a lot of members of FrP probably want to get rid of public health care, but they can't openly campaign for that because it goes so against the values and the culture of Norway that it would make them very unpopular, and therefore they may admire Trump for being able to do something that they can't. In fact, Christian Tybring-Gjedde from FRP nominated Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. In the same way, in America you have a lot of socialists that vote for the Democratic Party, not because the Democratic Party is socialist, but because it's the best surrogate they have. There is no popular socialist party in the United States, and socialism in the US is a dirty word, so it's hard to openly campaign as a socialist. So when looking at politics across country lines, people often care less about the actual policies and more about whether they feel like this party or politician is moving the country in the direction that they themselves support. Even though FRP would be considered left-wing by American standards, they are right-wing by Norwegian standards, and therefore they support the American right, which is moving the country in the same direction that they are. Like the philosopher Hansi Freinak wrote in his books, just wait a second. Like the philosopher Hansi Freinak wrote in his books, The Listening Society and the Nordic Model, yes, we're very consistent in our designs here. Just like Hansi Freinak said, other parties are just different shades of green social democrat, some a little bit more social than others, some a little bit greener than others, but they're all within that range. It's sort of the meta ideology of the Norwegian people. It's the overarching values that guide these parties, except for the ones at the border, both FRP and Rødt, that are trying to sort of push beyond that. So elections in Norway are kind of like me saying, oh, I'm going to vote socialist left this year. And then somebody else is like, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to vote conservative. And then we're both like, well, yeah, good luck in the election. So I personally prefer it when the left wing wins. And I certainly prefer it when the Greens get a lot of votes. But it's not a big disaster for me if the Conservative Party wins. They've been ruling us for like 7 years and I'm hardly even paying attention, to be honest. Seriously, it took me like 4 years before I realized that the Liberals were in government even. Because it's like, in 2013, Erna Solberg of the Conservative Party became Prime Minister in a coalition with the Progress Party. Then in the beginning of 2017, the Liberals joined the government. And then the next year, the Christian Folk joined the government. And then the next year, the Progress Party left. So I don't even need to wait for election. The government just... The parties just kind of switch themselves out depending on how well the cooperation is going. If you want to know what kind of conflicts plague my country, then in 2018 when KrF went into government, they wanted to take away women's right to abortion. And by taking away women's right to abortion, I mean that KrF kind of wanted to make it more difficult for women to get late-term abortions in the case where ultrasounds revealed that the fetus was disabled, because KrF considered that to be kind of discrimination, aborting disabled children. But of course that's harder to mobilize under, so some opponents made it sound like KrF's leader, Knut Arild Hareide, would personally impregnate every woman in Norway and force them to carry his disabled offspring. Anyway, people protested and KrF was like, okay, we won't do it. And that's just the kind of country that Norway is. I often meet immigrants who talk about how we have so much but we complain all the time. And what I tell them is that that's because this country is fucking boring, because nothing ever happens here. Like in 2011, our biggest crisis was that we ran out of butter before Christmas. No, I'm not joking. All of Norway ran out of butter before Christmas 2011. And it was the biggest crisis that my country faced that year. Like seriously, even American media talked about this, so you can check it up if you don't believe me. And you could You could buy like used butter on Finn.no, that's an auctioning website. You could buy used butter there for like $300. Huge money making opportunity. And like right now, yes, we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, but I haven't worn a face mask once because my county, my city is considered not that affected by the crisis. So we're like the country that gets the least affected by anything bad that happens ever. It's fucking boring. And that's why half of Norwegian news is about America, because shit happens in America. And the perfect example of that is the US election. So let's go to part 2, election night.